Hello and welcome. I'm Erin Endres, Graduate Guest Lecturer for Module 12, which covers Chapter 13 and Epilogue from the Aging Families and Caregiving textbook by Qualls and Zarit. In this module, we will learn more about the future implications of caregiving. We will start our conversation by discussing technology as a platform for intervention and research. How does technology impact family communication in supporting the care recipient? We will explore how technology may benefit our aging population and their caregivers. We will also consider challenges of technology as a platform for interventions. And finally, we will discuss the differences in communication across the generations and cultures. According to Qualls and Zarit, simple-to-use technology may be helpful during times of transition by removing or reducing barriers in communication. Seniors who experience reduced mobility or other physical challenges, such as hearing or vision loss, may experience anxiety during times of transition. For example, transitioning back home from the hospital to skilled nursing or rehab, or from the rehab facility back to the home. Technology can be used to connect caregivers to interventions and support, and to collect data. For example, support programs and resources are available through online technology. As we learned in the previous modules, technology may also be used to facilitate communications between the care recipient, family, and medical professionals. Technology may also be used for ongoing monitoring. Potential challenges do exist and may present barriers to effective use. Technology certainly has the potential to reduce isolation, improve quality of life, instill a renewed sense of purpose, boost cognitive activity, and reduce the incidence of certain dementias. Unfortunately, physical impairments may also render some technologies difficult to use. Economic status, racial or ethnic status, and where a person lives may also limit use. At the time the textbook was published, only 1/3 of those 65 or older had access to the internet, as compared to 82% of 30 to 49-year-olds. However, current findings from Pew Research Center show that the internet access and usage among the 65 and older group is growing, and recent data shows that 58% of seniors are using the internet. Let's explore the technology covered in Chapter 13 of the textbook. The HP Presto printing mailbox is a digital message delivery device that transmits email messages, text, and photographs to a receiver in the senior's home. Messages and pictures could be sent back and forth between the older adult and their friends or family. Since the Presto mailbox uses phone lines to transmit data, messages are set to download and print automatically at a predetermined time, usually really late in the evening when it wouldn't interfere with normal telephone use. The older adult wakes up to find the printed messages and photos in the Presto mailbox's holding tray. However, this technology was officially just phased out a few months ago. But don't fret, technologies are continually being developed and improved. So what's next for technology geared to seniors and healthy aging? In previous modules, we learned how advances in technology are improving communications regarding health. Let's take a closer look at other benefits of technology. Technology is growing and changing at a rapid pace and may help older adults maintain their independence. Technology may also allow older adults and their caregivers to be more involved in the decision-making process. For example, Ride-sharing technology or apps like Uber, they may afford more choices and control to an older adult who can no longer safely drive themselves. The emergence of devices that are able to communicate with the internet is also changing the way we care for seniors. Integrated technologies could help keep seniors in the home safely and delay institutionalization. Medical monitoring devices have traditionally been bulky and inconvenient. You've most likely seen commercials for those emergency alert devices where a senior presses a button on a wearable device like a necklace to summon help. Some older adults resist this type of technology, even if it might be needed, because they don't view themselves as old, and that's something that old people use. The good news is that the next generation of technology is much more streamlined and integrated. Wearables are getting smaller and smarter. Fitness tracking devices can monitor steps taken, heart rate, respirations. You can even use it to make a phone call. Medical stick-on tattoo-like devices containing tiny computer microchips provide medical monitoring following a procedure or even to help with a diagnosis. Digital monitors or motion sensors can track certain ADLs, such as getting out of bed, toileting, taking medications, or opening the refrigerator to prepare a meal. Of course, there's also voice-acted technology that can help seniors with mobility or vision impairments to make phone calls, turn on lights, schedule appointments. The list goes on. Smart pills. I just heard about this on the news lately. It's a little pill that you swallow, and it contains a tiny computer chip, and it can assist with diagnosis or even delivery of medications through a pump or similar device. And then, of course, there's GPS. GPS-capable devices, such as shoe inserts or a watch, may help monitor activity and alert to wandering issues for older adults with dementia. Now that we've learned about some new technology, let's explore clinical policy and research initiatives that will affect the future of caregiving. Throughout the semester, we have learned about the correlation between family function and the well-being of the care recipient. It is easy to see how improving communication and providing the right support could improve outcomes. Let's explore clinical initiatives. When considering clinical initiatives, it is important that clinicians have a good understanding of the interventions available to caregivers. In order to diagnose problems and prescribe care, clinicians must understand that there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Each family situation must be analyzed, and appropriate interventions and support must be offered. Although information in and of itself is a valuable supplement to face-to-face interaction, it should not be considered a replacement. Clinicians must be understanding and compassionate. I pulled a quote from Qualls and Zarit that kind of summed this up very nicely. And it reads, "Caregivers who are ready to use information will often find and implement it on their own. When caregivers are stuck, depressed, and overwhelmed, information is not the answer. They need instead to work with a professional who has the skills to help them identify and unravel the emotional knots and family dilemmas that are holding them back." Clinicians and family caregivers should all remember that they are working toward the same goal, and that is to support the best outcome for that care recipient. Throughout the semester, we have also addressed concerns and identified possible gaps in support for kin and non-kin caregivers. Whether due to geographical location or cultural barriers, access to support services may be a concern. Funding is also an important consideration. The lack of federal funds and cuts to services, including VA and mental health services, is impacting caregivers and care recipients. With our growing senior population, society must be creative in providing appropriate support, and new legislation is needed. Keep in mind that not every older adult has a strong family network to rely on. Looking at the baby boomer generation, they may not have the same levels of support from their family as previous generations. We need to be aware of potentially smaller sized families and higher divorce rates and non-traditional type family living. Also, the older LGBTQ community members may also face unique challenges when it comes to advocacy and support in older age. In addition to federal and state policy reform, person-centered care should be considered as a way to reduce inefficiencies and improve outcomes for caregivers and care recipients. Basically looking at that person as a whole person across the board. Training for long-term care professionals focusing on quality of care is also needed. This leads us to research initiatives. We already know from previous chapters that longitudinal studies on caregiver interventions are brief at best. There is tremendous opportunity in the field of research to perform longitudinal studies, learn about the long-term effects of caregiver interventions and their impact on care recipient outcomes, as well as examining the roles and relationships of different family members. Why the need for longitudinal studies? Well, they can help us understand the life cycle of a caregiver. How does the caregiver's role change over the course of months or years? More long-term studies will be helpful in creating programs that meet the unique needs of the individuals involved. Longitudinal studies will give clinicians a better understanding of the impact of family dynamics, so effective interventions can be prescribed and ultimately lead to better outcomes. And ultimately, longitudinal studies will help us understand the impact of caregiver interventions on caregivers to ultimately achieve better outcomes for the care recipient. There may be a cost benefit as well. Better outcomes lead to a reduced cost. In a climate where we must be more and more creative about how to stretch those funding dollars, this could be very important. More longitudinal studies may help identify where to get the most bang for our buck, so to speak, when it comes to federal or state level funding. As we bring this module to a close, let's reflect on what we have learned. We've explored the positives and the challenges related to technology, and we have discussed clinical, policy, and research initiatives that affect the caregiver and the care recipient. We have also discussed the correlation between better communication and better support to achieve better outcomes. My last slide contains links to some resources that I hope you will take some time to look at. I hope you enjoyed the lecture, and I thank you for listening.